Good day, all you beautiful people. I have another older personal computer to show you today. This is an HP Pavilion a720n, manufactured in 2004. This was given to me by my friend David, my old friend David, 2 or 3 years ago. I've had this thing for a long time, and I've just never bothered to make a video of it. After I got it, I had only used it for a short while before I actually put it into storage in the basement, which in retrospect now, I'm surprised hasn't completely destroyed this thing. There actually was a reason I didn't use it. I'll get to that in a bit. But this is a pretty interesting computer, very, very full-featured for the time. I don't know if this was sold as a high-end machine or as a media center computer, but it was, at the very least, a very media-oriented computer. A lot of hardware features on this thing. Very useful. When I got this computer, it was really kind of a slightly special thing for me, because this computer is, in spirit, the successor to the custom-built computers I used to have. You may remember, if you've been subscribed long enough, that way back in the day, I've actually had in the past two custom-built computers. They were built at and purchased from an independent computer shop that used to operate back home. One purchased in 2004, brand new. It was the first new computer I ever owned. The second was purchased around 2007 or 8, I think, second-hand. Both computers built by the guy who ran that store, both built on generic cases, both built around Gigabyte motherboards, both built around socket A AMD processors. Well, this computer is very much the same. It's built around a standard ATX case. The motherboard is a standard ATX motherboard, and it's overall very much the closest thing to the original two custom-built computers that I've ever had. And in fact, this computer suffered a problem which the two custom-built computers also suffered and subsequently were destroyed because of. But this computer is still working. David gave this to me working, and it's still working just fine. It had a couple of minor issues which were easily fixed. So let's take a look at this thing. First of all, basic hardware specs. This thing has an AMD Athlon XP processor, socket A, 512 megs of RAM. Geez, I should have, for this video, I should have stuck the 1.5 gigabytes I have in that Pentium 4 motherboard that I still have lying around. Would have made this thing a lot quicker, a lot faster for the demo. Oh well, but I've got 512 megs in it right now. And get this, a 200 gigabyte hard drive. Holy crap! And it is original, the original hard drive. HP put a 200 gigabyte hard drive in this thing, which I'm pretty sure was one of the largest, if not the largest, size of hard drive that you could get in 2004. Most computers from around this thing's time had 40, maybe 60 gigabyte hard drives. This thing is 200 gigabytes. Holy moly, that's amazing. So this may very well have been a top-end computer for its time. The only reason I don't consider it top-end is because it has an AMD processor, not an Intel, and it didn't come with any discrete graphics or anything. This thing has VIA onboard graphics. In fact, almost all of the onboard hardware on this thing is VIA. And of course, this thing shipped with Windows XP, aka the greatest operating system of all time, and that's what I have running on it still. I of course replaced the original installation. So let's do a physical overview. For some reason, this thing came with two optical drives, and one of them was absolutely not required. The top drive was a DVD-RW drive. Yes, 2004, this thing came with a DVD-RW. Very high-end feature in 2004. But it also came with a ho-hum CD-ROM drive in the bottom. I have no idea why. If HP put a DVD-RW in this, why did they put in a second just plain old CD-ROM drive? I don't know. Unfortunately, both the drives I had to throw away. both drives, it's something I'm seeing more and more with older optical drives now. It kind of worries me because several of my own drives have developed this problem. I find now in the past few years, lots of older computer optical drives are developing a problem in which they won't open. Not because a belt is slipping or anything, although a slippery belt doesn't help. But what happens is, over the years and years of the drive's life just existing, the part of the drive that I guess keeps the disk in place when a disk is inserted, and it's magnetic. So when you stick a disk in the drive, a mechanism, I think, pushes the disk upward, and a magnet keeps it there in place. Well, over time, if a disk is not in the drive, as would be the case for most of the drive's life, that magnet will slowly magnetize the component that sits on the other side of the disk. So one component magnetizes the other, and it strengthens the magnetic force between them. And what happens is, eventually the drive can't open anymore because the force required to separate those two magnetically coupled pieces becomes too great, and either the belt slips or the motor itself doesn't have enough torque to overcome that magnetic force, so the drive simply won't open anymore. I've seen it happen to my drives at an alarming rate over the past few years. I think I'm only down to like a couple of spare drives left that don't have this issue. When it happens, sometimes you can bang the drive, and when you press the button and you hear the motor going or whatever, you give the drive a good slap and it'll break the magnetic force and the thing will open. But in the case of the two drives that were in this machine, the problem was to such an extent that they were just unusable. I could not get them open. The only way I could get them open was sticking a paper clip in the emergency eject hole every time. Even when a disc was in them, they would not eject. The magnetic force had become that great over the drive's lives. I had no choice but to throw them both away, which is too bad. Because they were both working drives. Too bad. In this slot, I have one of my spare drives, an LG DVD-ROM drive. And this one's empty. Looking at the ports now, flip this thing down. Look at that. Turn my video light on here. We have a full array of front panel ports and hardware. Very, very nice. Look at this. Analog audio ports. 2 USB ports, and it is USB 2.0, and one of the best features, I think, of this computer, it has onboard FireWire. Awesome. This is my first and only desktop computer that has onboard FireWire, which is so nice. As a matter of fact, now that I have this computer running good, this is going to replace my PowerBook G4 as my video capture machine. Because I use my Hi 8 camcorder and my Digital 8 camcorders, and the best way to transfer video off those is through FireWire. And this will work very nice for that. It'll work better in my PowerBook, because when you capture DV video with iMovie, iMovie translates it into a non-DV format, which still works just fine when I move it over to my laptop and edit it in Sony Vegas, but you have to set a couple of settings because Vegas doesn't recognize the proper format of the video, and it looks a bit weird until you change these settings. With this thing, of course, I capture using Sony Vegas, and don't have to touch it in any way. It's recognized perfectly when I throw it into Vegas, which is also my video editor. But yes, onboard FireWire, very nice. A 3.5-inch floppy drive, as every real computer has. This drive works just fine, but it's not hooked up right now. You'll see why in a few moments. And a card reader. What do we have here? Smart Media, an XD card, compact flash type 1 and 2, so it'll also handle micro drives, I imagine. I haven't actually tested this before. A multimedia card and SD card, and it'll also take Memory Stick and Memory Stick Pro cards. It won't take Duo, but it does take both the MS and MS Pro cards. Very nice. And look at this, a third USB port. 3 USB ports on the front. Wow. What a nice full-featured computer. take a look at the back here. Alright, now I'm about to show you something odd. Take a look at this. Take a look at the power supply here. This is quite clearly not the original power supply. The two custom-built computers I had, both were destroyed because the power supplies in both of them failed. They failed, and they just, I think in both cases, they actually corrupted the motherboard's BIOS, which is kind of odd. And both computers became totally junk because of that. The power supplies in both of them failed. Well, this thing, the power supply in it also failed, although luckily it did not damage anything. This thing came with a high-pro power supply, and this thing was manufactured during the height of the capacitor plague. And the high-pro power supply that was originally in this computer, every single capacitor was ruptured. I opened up the power supply and looked, every single capacitor ruptured. It did work when I got this computer. I picked this thing up working. It was working with that power supply with every cap blown. But when I got this thing and I looked at I actually knew when I got this thing. I said, okay, when I get this thing home, I have to look at the motherboard and I have to look at the power supply and see what shape the caps are in. Because I know a 2004 computer will very likely have some blown caps. Luckily, you'll see the motherboard's absolutely perfect, which is great. But yeah, power supply, every cap blown, still did work. And it worked when I put this thing away into storage. And that's the reason I put this thing into storage. I didn't want to use it with a power supply that could potentially blow at any time. It did work, but I didn't want to take the risk, and that's why I put this thing into storage for a couple of years. I knew it was a standard ATX power supply, and I said, okay, sometime I will get another power supply and replace it with that. Just never did it because, you know, it's money, and it's money for one of 20 computers I don't need, so I just never got it done. Well, this power supply came out of another computer, and it works just fine, but as you can see, it's clearly non-standard physically. You may remember last year I got a hold of two IBM computers. One of them I still have to make a video of. The other, a video will never be made because I don't have it anymore because I threw it away because it turned out that IBM computer had bad caps on the motherboard, and it was completely unusable, and I didn't find it worth it to replace the caps on the motherboard of a, at the time, 10-year-old computer, so I saved all the useful parts and scrapped it. One of the useful parts was this power supply, which still worked just fine. Oddly enough, this is also a high-pro power supply, only a year newer than the power supply this thing came with, but every capacitor is good. I've been inside this power supply, no blown caps, just a year after the one that had every cap blown. Very interesting. So yeah, this is the power supply out of an IBM ThinkCentre, and it works just fine. It's compatible electrically. Physically, it's good enough to work. Just one screw lines up with this thing and allows it to fit. So yeah, this works just fine. I'll eventually replace it with a standard ATX power supply because I will be building a computer out of a bunch of scrap parts I have lying around, including that Asus Pentium 4 motherboard, and I'll be using this power supply. I actually pulled this power supply out of that computer. It's not finished. I still need a heatsink, and I need a couple other things for it, but I figured until then, this power supply can be used in this thing, and it works just fine. It's been working great. Oh, I haven't even explained yet what happened to the original power supply. I put this thing into storage. A few weeks ago, when I got it out of storage, I went to plug it in, and first of all, when I plugged it in, the power supply started making what I believe was a 30 hertz buzz. Not 60 hertz, 30 hertz. It was like something ticking inside it 30 times a second, and that really worried me. The green light was still on it though. However, when I went to power on this machine, the green light actually turned off, and it flickered once in a while, and the computer did not post. So that's, I guessed right then and there, the power supply's gone, stuck this one in it, worked perfect, computer's fine. So I just cut the wires off that power supply to use for various projects, and I threw it away. So that's the story on the power supply. It actually, you know, I guess it really was on the tipping point when I first got this thing, and sitting in storage in that really harsh environment of that basement just sent it over the edge. But luckily it was not a catastrophic failure. I'm glad for that. So what do we got for ports on the back? We have a case fan, PS2 ports, a serial port, a parallel port, a full array of legacy ports, awesome. VGA, the onboard graphics on this thing are S3 Unichrome graphics, just like my two custom-built computers. 4 more USB ports, so this thing has a total of 7 USB ports. Another FireWire port, awesome. 100 megabit Ethernet, and the array of analog audio ports. I like how on the sticker it says, "Caution, powered speakers required for sound." I don't know why they need to put caution. It's not going to explode if you put unpowered speakers into it. Here's something kind of odd. This sticker here says HP Pavilion A000, and I don't know why. My guess is HP made a variety of machines based around this computer design, or at the very least based on the same case, and this is a sticker that just encompassed all of those models. I think Compaq did the same thing with the Presario series. Hardware, BOM. BOM stands for Bill of Materials. So basically what this means is there's some sort of database where if you were to put this number, it would give you a list of all of the hardware parts that made up this computer. And that's what Bill of Materials means. It means all the parts that make up a particular product. Likewise, there's a software bill of materials, so that would be a list of all the individual pieces of software that came with this thing. That would be Windows and any drivers and any bloatware that came installed. There's the rest of the information. So that's the external view of this computer. As you can see, very well featured in the way of ports. But let's look inside it now. We've got thumb screws here, very nice because they're anchored thumb screws. Very nice. It's a two-handed job. Alright. Take a look what we have inside here. Probably best to turn my light on. So this IBM ThinkCenter power supply, the cables coming from it were not nearly long enough to reach into the ports on the motherboard. So I have an ATX motherboard extension cable here that plugs into the motherboard, and it takes the Pentium 4 12-volt power connector, which I also had to add an extension cable for. Both pieces were like 99 cents on eBay. As a matter of fact, I got 5 of these Pentium 4 extensions for 99 cents, which is kind of funny. Socket A, standard socket A cooler, fan provided by Cooler Master. Oh yeah, this thing actually has an Asus motherboard in it. That's how close this thing is to the original custom built computers I had. It's not even an HP motherboard. It was made by Asus, and they don't try to hide it at all, which is pretty cool. It just has an HP BIOS on it. I often wonder if I could flash it with the standard Asus BIOS. I'm too scared to, though. I'm scared. I know it would. The Asus BIOS is probably a lot better featured, but I'm afraid that there's some minor change on this motherboard that HP has made such that if I ever tried the Asus BIOS, it would just break the motherboard. Now take a look at this. We have IDE, and there's the floppy connector, but we also have SATA. Wow. This was definitely, you know what, I take back anything I said about this probably not being a high-end computer just based on the processor. I have reason to believe this was probably quite a high-end machine in its day. In 2004, SATA, wow. I wonder if it's SATA 1, not SATA 2. There's the hard drive. It's a Seagate Barracuda 7200.7, 200 gigabytes. Oddly enough, the date code, it's only 5 digits, so I don't know what kind of format it is, but it almost looks like a 2005 date code. But everything else in this computer is dated 2004, And I do know this thing did originally come with a 200 gigabyte hard drive, so that is likely the original hard drive. Could be an identical replacement though, who knows? I don't know the history of this thing. Look at all these tethers coming from the front panel I/O. There's the 2 RAM slots. This takes DDR RAM. I don't know what the maximum is. I imagine probably at least a gigabyte, possibly 2 gigabytes. We have an AGP slot, so I have those AGP video cards that Neil gave me. I ought to stick one of them in here. And 3 PCI slots. So that's about it for the inside tour of this thing. Very, very nice, well featured, and very standardized computer composed of off-the-shelf parts, which is very nice. Now, here's one of the most intriguing and shocking things about this computer when I first got it. I know David has at least 1 dog, he might have 2, I don't remember. But when I got this thing, I noticed that it just kind of smelled, and I couldn't identify what the smell was. It smelled like some kind of odd dust or something, but it was nothing I ever smelled before. Well, it turns out it was the smell of dog hair. I've never had a dog. When I opened this thing up, I was shocked. This thing is, to date, the dirtiest computer inside I have ever seen. I can only assume that it was 10 years of dog hair I was looking at. But when I opened this thing, I noticed, you know, when I was bringing it into the house, this brown dust was falling out of all the holes. Brown dust here falling out, and brown dust falling out of here, and brown dust falling out of here. Just dust falling out of it as I was carrying it. And I was like, what is going on? This was before I opened it. Well, I went to open this, and it was a truly shocking sight. The inside of this thing looked like someone just took a big bag of dirt and dumped it inside. It was just piles of loose, it was just a huge pile of loose dirt. I'm not talking like things were caked in dirt. I mean, the inside of the computer was actually filled with this dirt. It was amazing. There was so much dirt that the CPU fan couldn't even spin at full speed. I had never seen anything like this. I took this thing outside and I literally flipped it upside down to dump the dust out of it. Like, there was, like, in terms of volume, there was like 3 or 4 liters of dust inside this thing. It was literally like you could grab handfuls of it. I didn't do that because it was pretty disgusting, but you could have grabbed multiple handfuls of this brown, smelly dog hair dust inside this. I have never seen, to date still, I've never seen anything like it. So what I did was I removed every component of this computer. I took the case, and this, when I opened this thing, it was just, the smell was unbelievably strong and almost nauseating. I took all the components out and just took the case here and went down to the basement, filled the wash tub with hot water and soap, and I just dumped the case in there and I scrubbed it, and I had to refill the wash tub multiple times because the water kept turning a dark brown color. It was amazing. I have never seen a computer as dirty as this one. It was just 10 years of sucking up loose dog hair. I'd never seen anything like it. It was amazing. In retrospect, I ought to have just dumped the motherboard and everything in the water because it was caked as well, but all I ever did was the motherboard was that I blew compressed air on it really thoroughly. Also, the floppy drive did not work when I got this thing. I assume that was due to the dust. The floppy drive was caked with dust. I also submerged the floppy drive in the water, and I didn't scrub it because the floppy drive's full of precision mechanical components. But I swished it around in the water, and the floppy drive turned the water black, and oh my goodness, what a sight it was. Eventually, I let the floppy drive dry out for a few days, tried it, and it still didn't work. And it turns out because my washing of it, it was already not working because of the dust, but I assume my washing of it washed away whatever lubricant there was on the head rail, And so this was actually the first floppy drive I ever fixed using my, I almost want to say trademark, because I'm the only person I've ever heard of doing it. But my signature, at the time, it was Vaseline on the head rail. Now I use lithium grease. But yeah, this was the first floppy drive I ever tried fixing in that way, and it worked. This is the original floppy drive, and it works perfectly now. Silent and everything. So yeah, I bathed and lubricated a floppy drive, and it survived and works just fine. But holy moly, this thing was an unholy mess. After I had washed it and washed it and washed it, it still smelled really strong of dog hair, and every time you turned it on, the room would smell with it, because of course the two fans would blow the smell out into the atmosphere. But now, a couple years later, I'm glad to say it does not smell anymore. I can't smell a hint of it. The smell of Mum's dank basement has overridden the smell of dog hair, and Mum's dank basement is a much more humane smell. So, that's the story of this thing. I say, let's put it back together and boot it up. Alright, I've got my television hooked up for a monitor, including sound, new feature in these videos. And I've got my USB keyboard and one of my USB mice just plugged in the front USB ports here. And I do have this thing connected via Ethernet to the Dell Inspiron 530, which is currently running. So the 530's wireless internet connection is being served to this computer, so we do have internet access. So I'll turn it on here. There you go. It's just a standard award BIOS. Oh, crap. Well, I wanted to show you into the BIOS, but I'll do that later, I guess. Oh, goodness gracious, what the heck? Is that because I hit the power button just when it started to boot Windows? Holy goodness, I've never seen anything like that. Take note of these numbers. I want to look those up later. Wow, that is weird. I've never... Geez, and today at work I had 2 blue screens of death, and all I was trying to do was move a folder into another place on the computer. Wow, I'm certainly getting them today. Well, let's try again. I want to get into the BIOS. F1 for... I don't think I've ever been into the BIOS in this thing. There it is. So it's a Phoenix Award BIOS, but HP has modified it in some way or another. There we go. Yes, standard Phoenix BIOS. Time of date's correct. It actually kept the right time of date while it was in storage. Floppy not installed. Oh yeah, I never mentioned why the floppy wasn't installed. It's because that power supply I put in doesn't have a floppy connector, because the IBM ThinkCentre used a proprietary floppy which got its power from the motherboard. So the power supply doesn't have a floppy connector, but I've ordered a SATA to Molex power adapter, because all the Molex connectors are already in use by the hard drive and optical drive. So I bought a SATA to Molex power adapter and then a Molex to floppy power connector. So eventually this floppy drive will be hooked up to power once again. There's the hard drive, there's a CD drive, 512 megs of PC 2700 DDR RAM, BIOS revision 3.11, there's the date. Also notice my television set, it doesn't do good on text-based video modes. The bottom's always, either the bottom or the top is cut off a lot. Ah yes, I have the diagnostic screen enabled, so you see all the technical stuff. If I have it disabled, you just see the HP logo. I think one of the fans in that is needs a bit of an oiling. There we go. This computer is quite fast for its age. I would attribute it to that big, huge hard drive, because a huge hard drive is generally a relatively fast hard drive. This thing boots up quite quickly, and it's quite fast when you're not doing anything RAM intensive. Look how fast this thing's booting up. Hard drive's quite loud too. Yeah, there you are. This thing is quite fast for its age. If I were to put lots of RAM in this, it would probably be a very snappy computer running XP. As you can see, I have Avast antivirus installed. Here's something that's useful to know, and I may make a separate video just about this. Avast still supports Windows XP. However, in the most recent versions of Avast, you need to have a CPU with the SSE2 instruction set to install Avast. If you don't have it, it doesn't even give you an error telling you that. The installation just straight up crashes upon launch. So yeah, and I noticed this. I was trying to install Avast when I got this computer running, and the installation program would just crash, and it's like, what's going on? Well, it turns out it gives you no indication of this. It's because it needs the SSE2 instruction set, which AMD's Socket A processors do not have. AMD was really behind the times for instruction sets. Back in this computer's time, that wasn't an issue, but nowadays it's a little bit of an issue, because a Pentium 4 system which has SSE2 and even SSE3 on the last generation of Pentium 4 processors, they can still run just about any 32-bit software you desire. But the AMDs just can't anymore. A lot of software now needs at least the SSE2 instruction set. Whereas these Socket A AMD processors, the best they have is SSE. So you can have some problems getting software for computers like this now, and Avast is one of them. However, it turns out that if you install an older version of Avast, like I installed the 2013 version of Avast, it installed just fine. Avast will update itself to the 2015 version, and the 2015 version of Avast still gets the current virus database updates, which is great. So if I say update engine and virus definitions, so you can see the version of the program I have here, 10.4.2233, dated September 17th, 2015. But if you try to install this version just on its own, this version technically does not support SSE2. You have to install an even older version. The latest I've been able to find that works is from 2013, and then it updates to this 2015 version and works. So, yeah, okay. So if we look at the virus database here, August 5th, 2016, the day I filmed this video. So that's awesome. So even though it takes a little bit of trickery to accomplish, this computer can still get fully up-to-date virus protection, which is excellent. Other than that, I have virtually nothing installed on here. I haven't even installed Sony Vegas yet. I installed Windows XP Service Pack, unofficial Service Pack 4, which you can see right here where it says version 2014. Oh geez, I thought it was a 2000 plus. Oh, it's a 3200 plus. 2.2 gigahertz. Oh, that helps this thing be a bit snappy. I don't do a good job preparing for these videos. I make them now based on my motivation, because motivation is not something I have a surplus of anymore. So when I feel really geared up to make a video, I'm just like, okay, I gotta make the video now. And I'm generally ill prepared, but that's okay. So I install Service Pack 4 before I even put this thing on the internet, and then I put it on the internet, and then it gets the rest of the Windows updates, including the up-to-date Windows POS Ready updates. So this thing is very possible on a computer this old. It's fully up-to-date with Microsoft Windows updates. It has a fully up-to-date antivirus. Excellent. I think the only other thing I have installed on here is Firefox. Google Chrome used to be my go-to browser, but it doesn't support XP or Vista anymore. No, I do not have. I've literally just finished updating this thing, so I don't have Firefox on here, but that's what I use. So I'll go to Mozilla.com right now and download and install Firefox. We're running Windows Internet Explorer 8, so you can see how this does on the internet. Oops, wow. I tried to do this, remembering that XP doesn't have the arrow snap. I'm used to the arrow snap being able to drag a window to the top and then it maximizes. What an age we live in. Tell you what, I'll install Firefox. Here's something I don't know that I'm interested to find out. Can something running a socket A AMD processor still play YouTube? A Pentium 4 barely does anymore. Actually, I don't know if a Pentium 4 will at all anymore. I know a Pentium 3 doesn't. A Pentium M barely does. I think if you're lucky, you'll get 360p on a Pentium M, but it's been years since I last played YouTube on a socket A AMD, and back then it worked just fine. So I'll install Firefox and we'll go to YouTube and see if this thing can handle YouTube video. While we're waiting for this thing's horrible internet connection, just show you the hardware here. So we're on S3 graphics, Unichrome onboard graphics. Good graphics for the time, very common, quite good compatibility across operating systems, and very good 2D GUI performance. Via FireWire controller, via Rhine 2 Ethernet adapter, which I haven't heard of before. My two custom-built computers both had Realtek Ethernet adapters. 32. I wonder if that's possibly the fastest socket A processor that was ever made, the 3200 plus. That's a really high number, 3200. Which, by the way, means that AMD equated this thing to a 3.2 gigahertz Pentium 4. We do have Realtek AC97 audio, standard fare. Again, very common, very compatible. And I think our download's done. Yes, it is. So we'll wait for Firefox to install and then we'll come back. Alright, let's see if we can do what we can do on YouTube here. Women's soccer, CBC Sports. Alright, let's see what this thing does. Wow. Oh, here we go. Okay, it doesn't need to buffer. It's buffered pretty well. It's just super choppy. Wow. And I think that's playing in like 240. Yeah, it's playing in 240p. That is not what I'd call watchable. Let's try 140p. Sheesh. Oh, what the heck? Oh, wow. Holy crap. Add a comment. I was watching women's soccer. Restart Firefox. Submitting report. Submitted successfully, that's good. Wow, I don't think I've ever seen a web browser crash because we were watching a 140p YouTube video. Oh, it's gonna jump right back to the same page, that's good. Let's try it again. Set it to 144p. Let's try it now. No, it's still... The audio skips too. Wow. How much computers of this age have aged in the past few years. Gosh, I remember the day, of course, I've been... Oh, there it crashed again. How about that? I was still watching women's soccer. Or football, as some of you guys know it. I was still watching women's soccer. Quit Firefox. I remember the days, of course, I've been watching YouTube since, well, basically since it came out. As soon as YouTube started becoming popular around 2006. Me and my peers were watching, not really me, but my peers were watching YouTube videos on the computers back at my middle school. The computers at my middle school were compact Desk Pro EN systems running like 800 megahertz Pentium 3s, and they ran YouTube like a dream. They had more than enough power for YouTube. It's relevant to know that back in the earliest days of YouTube, like back when I started making videos around 2008, 2009, when you watched a YouTube video, you had a normal quality mode, and then you had the HQ mode, and a big thing back at the day was to paste a link to the HQ mode video in the description, so in case the button for HQ mode didn't show up, you could click the link and get the HQ version of the video. HQ would have been equivalent to 360p now, and the normal mode would have been equivalent to 240p. Well, back in the early days of YouTube, the earliest days, there wasn't even a normal mode and an HQ mode. There was a normal mode and then a mode slightly less quality than normal. And the slightly less quality would have been somewhere in between 144p and 240p. And back in this day, the earliest days of YouTube, a Pentium 3 was tons of power to watch YouTube, even though even at that time it was already a very aged platform. You know, like a Coppermine Pentium 3 had plenty of power to watch YouTube videos in the higher quality mode. Something like a 533 megahertz Celeron, like a Mendocino Celeron, or a first generation socket A AMD, like the original Athlon or the Duron, they had enough a YouTube video in the lower quality mode. And now here we are, a computer, 2.2 gigahertz, one of the fastest socket A processors, if not the fastest, and it doesn't have enough power to play a 144p video smoothly. My goodness, how the times have changed. Well, that's pretty much all there is to show of the HP Pavilion a720n desktop computer from 2004. What a very nice machine, very fully featured, a very high-end machine for its time. And it's just a very nice computer, onboard FireWire, that's wonderful. And if you're watching this video and you're hearing me say this now, I did transfer this video to this computer using its onboard FireWire port. So this computer will be very handy for me. It'll be more convenient to use than my PowerBook G4. And it's a great addition to my very large collection of personal computers. So I hope you guys enjoyed this computer, and I will see you later.